Hello and welcome to the Moonshots Podcast. It's episode 269. I'm your co-host, Mike Parsons, and as always, I'm joined by the man himself, Mr. Mark Pearson Freeland. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Good morning, members, viewers, listeners, subscribers, and everybody who's out there dialing into this week's episode on the Moonshots podcast. Mike, I reckon today's episode is going to satiate some people's appetites. It's going to
Ooh.
bring some new insights with regards to what we are consuming, what we're thinking about consuming, what we're putting into our shopping lists each week. This is a little bit of a step change from our mindset orientation and maybe a little bit more into our bodies, if you will.
Yes, we're going to feed some hungry minds indeed, but in order to feed hungry minds, we need to feed hungry bodies, right?
Oh, I like that analogy very, very well. Lucky for us, Mike, we have an action-packed episode today where we're going to lean into a brand new one-off series, which is all orientated around our bodies. And today we're going to dive into Dr. Catherine Shanahan and Luke Shanahan's book, Deep Nutrition. So, as we know from a lot of our headlines and a lot of the public awareness at the moment, we're kind of dominated in our world by convenience, maybe fast food, maybe this potentially dirty word of processed snacks. Well, today, Mike, we're going to be leaning into some of the key insights that Dr. Cate Shanahan reveals within her book, Deep Nutrition, whilst also providing us a little bit of a direction or a step change, if you will, with regards to how we view what we're purchasing, what we're putting into our mouths, as well as the mouths of our families, and hopefully getting a little bit of insights along the way with regards to the impact that those decisions have on us. I mean, that sounds like a pretty attractive, tasty meal on today's episode, doesn't it?
It does indeed. So I would say this show is for anybody who simply wants to increase their energy levels. Today is also a show for people that are thinking, I want to think more clearly. And we know that diet is a great way in which to unlock that. But more than anything, for any of you who respect your body and know the role that good physical health plays in the rest of your life, this show is for you. This is by far one of the single best books I have read and that I have used as far as nutrition, that is not some fad like, diet like thing. It's a way to live and be healthy and be your best. So, Mark, let's have your best clip.
Oh, here we go, Mike. All right, I'm hungry. I'm excited. I mean, the idea of the best book is an attractive soupçon to get into it. So why don't we start with a good entree? We're going to hear straight away. We're not even going to mess around today, listeners. We're going to get straight into the good stuff. We're going to hear from Dr. Cate, who's going to kick us off by breaking down maybe some hard truths, some several ingredients that we should reconsider and think about before we add them into our shopping list. And also, Mike, maybe a hard truth with regards to how we're actually cooking.
Up until this point, we've been talking about vegetable oils as an umbrella term. I know you have from our first conversation, the Hateful Eight. So talk about what this is. Let's zoom in on what specifically these oils are.
Yeah, so the Hateful Eight vegetable oils are the ones that I've defined based on their processing and their chemistry as the ones that we need to avoid. And the other ones are nowhere near as bad as these. So they are 3 C's, corn, canola, cottonseed, 3 S's, soy, sunflower, safflower, and then rice bran and grapeseed, rounding out the other 8. Now, the first 6, the 3 C's and the 3 S's, are the ones that I ask people to memorize. And those are the ones that you need to look for on an ingredients label. The other 2, rice bran and grapeseed, those are mostly going to be in kind of fancier restaurants because they're promoted, they're more expensive and they're promoted as healthy, but they're not healthy. Also, it's worth noting that there's no such thing as canola outside of North America. Canola is called rapeseed there. It's the same thing.
It's interesting you mentioned grapeseed being something we'd find more in like fancy restaurants. I remember about 5 years ago in the health world, that oil was touted as a good oil to cook with. You don't really taste it. Apparently it was good for high heats. I don't see it around as much anymore, but it's good that we're highlighting it here.
Yeah, so all the Hateful Eight, they make that same claim because they are all neutral flavor. They don't have a strong flavor due to the refining. It removes all the nutrients and all the flavor, almost all the flavor. But they also have a high smoke point. So the smoke point is this point at which you see a grayish blue wisp of smoke. It's the temperature at which you see this emerging from an oil. And the smoke point of olive oil is somewhere around 350. The smoke point of the vegetable oils, the Hateful Eight, is higher than that. It's usually at the high 300s or over 400. Deep frying temperature can go up to, it usually starts at 400, and it can go up to 450. But when you're cooking something in a pan, your food would incinerate. If it ever got to, if the whole aspect of the food ever got to be 350, it would be inedible. But you can use butter and you get that sear color and flavor at a lower temperature, which is actually better for the nutrition because high heat destroys nutrition. So if you can get something cooked at a lower temperature, tastes just as good or better, that is preferable to using high heat.
Mark, it is so crazy to think about the fact that here we are using these oils. Sometimes we're being like sold a story where it's like, yeah, it's really groovy, it's really interesting, but actually the simple thing that Dr. Cate is pointing out there is if you need to heat it to a higher temperature, you're literally cooking the goodness out of the food, right? And you can walk into a supermarket and that Hateful Eight is all there in a row. In fact, you'll see them like with multiple brands and multiple versions and all of that, selling all different characteristics. What she's proposing to us is it's literally doing damage to our bodies. And just if you take one step back here, this is a book that is peer reviewed. This book has like thousands and thousands of reviews. This is not some wacky scientist in the back of a lab somewhere. This stuff is legit. And frankly, Mark, it's very consistent with what we saw in one of our favorite food shows, which was Michael Pollan's In Defense of Food. He will talk about many similar themes, as does Dr. Cate. So I'm going to remember the Hateful Eight. Let's start there. What was your thoughts?
Yeah. So as a quick reminder of those Hateful Eights that we just heard from Cate, it's canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oil, safflower, sunflower, grapeseed, and rice bran oil. So all of those, Mike, they're pretty high. As you say, this is, first of all, a peer-reviewed and very scientific book. And what we're hearing from Cate, Dr. Cate, throughout the whole of this episode is reinforced by awareness of what's going into each of these ingredients. And that's the key insight, I suppose, that we're trying to share to our listeners here. Just be aware of what's going into them, because that high omega-6 content that's in all of those oils, not only can it promote inflammation in your body, but also when you're actually utilizing it as a process, as a cooking method, you end up burning the food. And that for me, Mike, was quite a big takeaway. I didn't necessarily understand the pitfalls of some of these oils, but to take it that step further into how I'm actually utilizing these oils, whether it's in a pan or otherwise, it didn't occur to me that I was burning out those valuable nutrients by cooking at such a high temperature. I'll be looking at putting on my frying pan, let's say, to do maybe some salmon. Let's choose something random. And I'll be looking for the convenience of doing it in a certain time. But what didn't necessarily occur to me was maybe by cooking it on such a high heat to get that nice sear and utilizing some of these oils, I'm burning out the good stuff. So
yeah, it was interesting, right? Because she's like, maybe they're going to make it, they can fake it with the taste, but they've burnt the goodness out of it. Again, oh my gosh. So what, in short, though, like, what Dr. Cate says is this is damaging because it hurts and harms the cells, but it also creates inflammation in the body, right?
Mm.
So what the crazy thing is, just run with me here. I know you're going to go, what is Mike talking about here? So she's
Here we go.
suggesting things like olive oil, coconut oil, butter, and animal fats as alternatives. One of the reasons being is that they don't require such high heats. But check this out. One of the animal fats that she likes is tallow. But tallow, it's a natural animal fat, is really, really good to cook in. But here's the crazy thing. The product I use for face moisturizer is also a tallow-based product, because this makes a very important connection, because we have this sensitivity about what we're putting in our mouth, but we know that the skin is porous. So if you're putting good stuff in your mouth, but putting crap on your skin, on your arm or your face, that stuff gets in your system as well. So here's the crazy thing. You can use tallow as a face moisturizer. As I speak, for all the video people, tallow went on this face this morning. Shea butter went in the hair as a natural hair product. No, a single chemical in the world. I'll go you one further. The soap that I use is an ancient soap. It's called Aleppo soap, from Aleppo. And it literally, it's so natural. It has two products, has a berry that kind of creates most of the goodness in it, antibacterial, antifungal, and I clean with it and I feel cleaner on my hands or on my face when I use this natural soap than when I do any other chemical-based soap. It is crazy. It works better than the chemicals anyway. I think the point here is that once we become aware of what is going directly or indirectly into our bodies, we can do a lot to reduce inflammation, improve health. And what we learned from Michael Pollan is it is clear that Western food diets have more inflation and more cancer, because we've seen the test case. When a community lives off the grid and doesn't have a Western food diet, low diabetes, very low cancer. Western food with the preservatives and all that junk comes in. What goes up? Diabetes. What goes up? Cancer rate. It's crazy, Mark. It's kind of like, why do we even have to like think about this? Why are we even presented with options? But the reality is you've got to take ownership for your diet. Do so. Be better in your health. You'll be clearer in your mind, and you'll do better in life, right?
Yeah, it's funny how we've taken until now, Mike, show 269 to really get back into this idea of diet and what we're putting into our bodies, because it's so connected to our mindsets, to how we feel healthy, to what motivates us to go out and exercise and to get good sleep. I think, like anything in life, there's a balance. You know, if you're looking for the convenience, the speed, the availability of certain foods versus maybe leaning towards something a little bit more natural, that's going to have a counterbalance, isn't it? Yeah. And that counterbalance, when it comes to food and what we're putting into our body, can have very, very detrimental effects. So I think right now, the invitation, I suppose, that we have for our listeners and members is, as you point out, to be more aware of what we're buying and putting into the bodies of ourselves as well as our families, because that value that you're purchasing convenience-wise may be detrimental in the long run. And that, Mike, is such an aha for me, because it's something that you just come to expect from supermarkets, isn't it?
Yeah. There is probably only one other ingredient that I want to talk about for a healthy lifestyle, and perhaps it's the healthiest ingredient you could ever put into your mind, body, and soul. And I think that's becoming a member of the Moonshots podcast.
You know what, Mike? I don't know whether it made Dr. Shanahan's book on deep nutrition, but I know that deep moonshot thinkers will already know it. And you're quite right. Becoming a member of the Moonshots podcast is one way to fast track yourself into feeling good and being active. So without further ado, let's welcome in our members: Bob, Niles, Dietmar, Marjan, Connor, Lisa, Sid, and Mr. Bonjour, Paul, Berg, Kalman, Joe, Christian, Samuela, Barbara, and Deborah, Lasse, Steve, Craig, Ravi, Yvette, Raul, Nikawada, and Ingram, Dirk, Venkata, Marco, Jet, Roger, Steph, Raw, and Diana, Christoph, Denise, Laura, Smitty, Corey, Daniela, Mike, Antonio, Zachary, Austin, Fred, Ola, Andy, Diana, Margie, Jasper, Fabian, Guhong, and Edward. Guys, thank you so much for being with us day in, day out, week in, week out. Thank you for having the Moonshots podcast on your shopping list for good mental as well as physical health.
And we really are grateful for your contribution as members. And if you're keen to become a member, head over to moonshots.io, hit the big button, become a member, and support the show. But in the meantime, Mark, we can now switch and go even deeper into nutrition for, funnily enough, the book Deep Nutrition by Dr. Cate. Well, let's go down to a genetic level. Let's get right down into the micro of micros. What do you got for us?
Well, that's right. So there's a big part of Cate's book that we'll lean into in a minute, and that comes down to the idea of legacy. So it isn't just benefiting us by taking ownership of what you eat, but maybe it's the people that come after you as well. So let's hear a little bit of a breakdown from Harry and Brett from the Meat Mafia, who are chatting to Dr. Cate about legacy and how to consider changing your genes.
What you're saying about genes is literally blowing our minds, because I think that it seriously is, because I think there's this misconception that I think about that book Mindset by Carol Dweck, where there's like a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I think a lot of people think about that with their genes. It's just, your genes, it's a genetic lottery. You get what you get. You can't really influence it. So I can just load my body with processed food and my kids will be unaffected by that. But you're literally saying that the inputs of what you're putting into your body are going to affect your kids, your grandkids, et cetera. So that totally just changes the incentives of how you should be thinking about living your life, right?
I mean, props. Taking Deep Nutrition and Carol Dweck Mindset are like moonshot favorites, Mark.
I know.
This is crazy good, right? Because what they're basically touching upon is the science that our body is continually regenerating. So if you're putting bad stuff in, the next version of yourself, your skin or your bones, whatever we're talking about, as it regenerates, it'll either be better or worse. So let's take a moonshot attitude. You can change the direction you're on. So if you feel that your diet is not healthy enough, if you feel not healthy enough through diet, then you can make a change. And the great news is, because your body is regenerating at a genetic level all the time, you can make it that impact really quick. Look at anybody. I actually spoke to someone today, Mark, who just switched to a mostly plant-based diet and eradicated alcohol from their diet and had lost over 12 kilograms. And I looked at him, I said, I've known him for like 20 plus years. And I said, you look 5 years younger. And he's only just started doing this for a couple of months. And he just looks just shining, radiating. That opportunity is with all of us, and we can make that change, not just at our faces, at a complete genetic level. And that's the good news. Like, if you go deep on nutrition with this book and really take good care of yourself, your best years can be ahead of you. And I think that's fantastic news. But Mark, we got so much to cover, right? And we're kind of down in this very deep level of nutrition. That's why we love this book. I think what's so good is you've also got this clip that actually gets into how our metabolism truly does work. So why don't you set this up for us so we can keep this deep nutrition going?
Yeah, there's a hard truth, I think, Mike, when it comes to how we manage our weight as well as burn our fat. We've obviously spoken a lot on the Moonshot Show about exercise and about really prioritizing movement into our world. And as you already point out, we've covered Michael Pollan in the past. This next clip we're going to hear from Dr. Cate really orientates itself around metabolism, which I think is a potentially confusing space for a lot of us nowadays when we think about what we're consuming and what we're getting out of it. So let's hear from Dr. Cate again, this time talking to us about managing weight, thinking about burning fat, but also leaning towards metabolic flexibility and how that can be a benefit for us all.
Well, let me tell you something that is actually good news. Is it is kind of, there's a lot of myths around weight loss and metabolism. And it is actually a myth that your metabolism even has speeds. And what you expressed is exactly what made people think, just assume that their metabolism has speeds, is because it feels like it's harder to lose weight and it's become easier to gain. But it has to do with your ability to burn your body fat, which is something related to metabolic flexibility, which is something that I'm sure Mark can speak to that as well. Just it means that you need to be able to burn your body fat easily between meals, because if you're hungry, between meals, if you get hungry between meals and you feel like you need to snack, that is a red flag. It's a red flag that you're not burning your body fat, because if you want to lose weight, then going between meals should be your best friend. You should be burning your body fat, but most people are not. And they're not because their metabolism is damaged by this stuff in our diet that we're all eating in massive quantities called seed oils that nobody has told you are bad for you.
I'm so into the seed oil discussion. We are 100% spending a bunch of time on that because I feel like, okay, elimination of just the choice of a certain food, that's easy, right? You don't have to get rid of all oils, but there are certain oils we're eating that we shouldn't be. But let me ask you about that, Mark, because when I looked at the Mark diet, one thing I did notice was there are no snacks on there. So to Cate's point, is that hard? Because I will say for me, and I think it's probably because I'm not eating the right stuff, it is very hard for me not to snack between lunch and dinner. And like you, I'm an intermittent faster. I know you don't eat before noon or 12:30. So breakfast isn't really on the menu for me most days, although some days I have it. Anyway, snacking's really hard for me to avoid. So how you don't have that problem? You go right from lunch to dinner without having hunger?
Yes, I do that. And, to fill in a little bit of what Cate said, this concept of metabolic flexibility really is the holy grail of not just weight loss, but health. If you can develop metabolic flexibility, if you can train your body through choices of food that you eat and types of exercise that you choose to do. If you can train your body to become metabolically flexible, you can train it to derive energy from whatever substrate happens to be available. So if you eat a meal and there's carbohydrate in that, you can burn the carbohydrates as glucose or as glycogen in your muscles. You can burn the fat in that meal, or you can burn the stored body fat when you choose not to eat.
Oh, Mark, this is like, now we're getting into the real stuff. I must say that one of the things I see as a constant theme in eating healthily is the timing and sequencing of how you eat. So, for example, I personally have discovered that if I don't eat before noon, I'm in absolutely great shape. In fact, in just not having breakfast, again, like I'm a 49-year-old male, so I don't need the nutrition of a 19-year-old. So key thing is I'm sharp and I'm good. So I thought, oh, that was a good step. Like nothing before noon. That's like a good mantra. I can live by that. But then actually something that Dr. Cate and Mark Sisson mentioned in that clip is it's also about avoiding snacking, because as soon as you snack in between meals, you're presenting another option to your body. Rather than going to the stored fat, you're presenting new options to burn from that. Now, that's great when I'm running or doing a marathon because I kind of need that. But yeah, I'm not doing that so regularly. So like the key thing that you can embody here, I think, is the choice of limiting snacks in the house and at work. Don't even put them near you. If I go to Atomic Habits and you want to adopt some of this thing, do not make snacking easy. A full larder of snacks, a full bowl of snacks in the office is only going to encourage you to one thing. I mean, who wouldn't walk past the snack bowl and go, like trail mix. Oh, there's a little bit of chocolate in that, but oh, I could use a little bit of that. Who's counting, right? Like it's about really habit formation to support the choices that you've made. And I think what we're hearing here is like avoid the snacking, sequence and time your food. And then my build on that, Mark, is you've got to make it hard to snack.
Yeah, I like that build, Mike. I think you're right. Snacking is the downfall for a lot of us, myself included, I'm going to admit. Other things, Mike, that I really lean into, I know that you obviously skip breakfast and that works really well. I think for those of us who decide to have breakfast, you can choose to start with really nutrient dense things such
Right.
as eggs, avocados, maybe some fruit and veg, to really orientate itself around giving you kind of fresh snacks that then help you get into your day with a little bit of energy. But
Yes.
the other thing that I try and put into my practice, Mike, is to batch cook.
Hmm.
Something that Dr. Cate really leans into is the idea of slowly cooking things.
Hmm.
Because as we heard in that first clip, when you cook at a high heat, you can cook off a lot of those nutrients. So batch cooking,
Hmm.
making things in advance to then kind of sit there and relax for a few days is a great way to not run into on a Tuesday night, oh, I need to cook, but it's going to take me 2 hours. That's timing is often what leads people to go and purchase maybe pre-packaged, pre-prepared foods that, as we're
Right.
learning today, is not necessarily the most sensible thing to do. So if you can batch a lot of stuff onto your weekends and then prepare for the week by making those whole foods, those nutrient
Yes.
dense meals
Yes.
in advance, that is a surefire way, in my opinion, of setting yourself up for success.
So this metabolic flexibility and this timing of meals and avoiding snacks and planning your meal, this is like fantastic. And it's going to lead us to the next clip in a second. But what I want to stress here is that if you wanted to, I love this idea. I have to be in bed by 10 p.m., right?
Yeah.
Very simple. If I get into bed by 10 p.m., life is generally pretty good the next day. I would say something that we practice in our family is meal planning. You talked about batch cooking, and by far, like a simple ritual would be on Sunday, make sure you go out, get all the food you're going to need for the following week, and actually do your meal prep. So, whether you're talking about lunch or dinner, cook some or most of it, put it in containers, put it in the fridge or freezer Sunday night, make it like a fun ritual that you, or if you have someone that you're living with, your family and partners or your roommates can join in with. Because I'll tell you what, not only does it make it easier to eat well when you have pre-planned, pre-cooked, meal prepped, healthy meals for the week, here's the other kicker. If that wasn't good enough, so you do it all on your Sunday, maybe you have a glass of wine while you're doing it, hey, like make it fun. Here's the other thing. You can then make choices at the grocery store and buy good quantities of food, maybe that is on sale or is relatively cheaper, and you put it into your batch cook process. So you've already pre-cooked it for the week. So let's say you can pick up some great chicken fillets, cook it all, put it with some rice and some sweet potato, broccoli, make that all pre-planned so you got dinner for the next 5 nights. Or you know what, if you put it in the freezer, you can mix it up. So maybe your meal prep is that you don't have the same dinner every night, but if you have a nice backlog, once it's been in the freezer, reheating it's no problem. So you might have a beef dish or a salmon dish, and you might have some nice frozen salmon in the freezer. The point here is, if you take your Sunday to plan that as a ritual, you are setting yourself up for success, not only health-wise, but it will make things work for you when you're at the checkout at the grocery store. You can make decisions like if a different produce is looking really expensive, maybe you dial it back, go for something that's a little bit more affordable. So I think that's a win-win, don't you, Matt?
Yeah, I totally do. And to take that one step even further, you're right. You referenced maybe sneaking in a little glass of wine to help you enjoy that cooking process on a Sunday. I
Oh, yeah.
think the key there is having a mindful approach to the cooking, really enjoying the fact that you're preparing those meals and use that as a habit that then rewards you in the long run. So making it maybe something that the whole family take part in, everybody, can smell the food, get excited for the week ahead, and really building in that gratitude for the food that we're actually consuming. Because
Right.
again, I think something that we lose in the balance of finding convenient and fast food is the appreciation for what we're putting into our bodies. And with that, to take it a step further, you then deprioritize the goodness that you're kind of getting out of it. And you just think of it, and this is something I've been guilty of in the past, thinking of food purely as fuel rather than as a way of increasing my health. So rather than it being just something to give me the energy to go for a run, let's actually prioritize the things that I'm putting into my body for longevity, for legacy, for feeling good and having good mental health. All of that ladders up to the consistent answer, doesn't it?
Oh, Mark, I want to just, you've really opened a can of worms here. Let me take it to another level. So I worked on this big project many years ago, and it was all about the benefits of eating at the table together as families. So since then, and just in my general interest in healthy eating, I can tell you there are many, many studies that say when you cook and eat together as family and or as friends, you have insane benefits. Okay, so it costs less, right? But here's the other crazy thing. If you look at the direct benefit from cooking and eating together, emotional well-being, belonging, it's a proven way of de-stressing. Okay, but it gets even better. You want to take to its highest level? And I'm just going to read you from some research here. Children who regularly participate in family meals tend to have stronger family ties and better emotional well-being. It also helps them develop important life skills such as cooperation, patience, and teamwork. Beautiful. So it's like insane. If you cook and eat together, like you're winning at the wallet, you're winning in your tummy, and you're winning in your hearts. That sounds really good. I think the next thing you want to do is figure out, well, what do you actually buy at the grocery store, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Mike, because right now our listeners and members are probably thinking, well, hang on, the guys have referenced oils. I've heard from Dr. Cate talking about Hateful Eight. You know, the guys listed a load of oils that I should probably avoid. Where do I start? Well, good news, listeners. We've got Dr. Cate one more time in today's episode on deep nutrition, now breaking down for us a list of things that she would recommend, ingredients to really consider and add into your weekly shopping, maybe to batch cook on the Sundays. So let's hear from Dr. Cate one more time, this time leaning in towards shopping lists.
Originally, I was like, I'll give up the pantry. I want to ask your opinion on what I should give up, but like everything you just listed is all over my pantry. I don't think I'd be able to avoid it. And everybody out there is in the same boat, Cate. So what do they do? How do they avoid it? It's in bread, it's in cracker, it's in everything.
So actually on my website, I have a shopping list that helps people find alternative products that don't have seed oils. And one of my favorite companies is actually founded by Mark.
Oh, good.
That way. And because he uses avocado oil in especially like mayo and the dressings, right? Because when you're eating healthy, you don't want your salad dressing or the sauces that you put on your healthy vegetables or your healthy meals, you don't want that to be full of toxic fats. And most people have no idea that that's actually what they're doing because most of the sauces that come in jars and most of the condiments are just made out of the cheapest possible stuff that the companies can find, which is always going to be the Hateful Eight oils. So, so you can find more and more products. It is possible, but you have to know what you're looking for. You have to know to do this. You have to know to do it, right? Like that's the first step is you need to know you need to do this. The second step is to follow me again and decide that you're going to do it with her, because if she can do it, you can probably do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So remember, okay, you like unrefined. You don't like anything that says hydrogenated or any of those Hateful Eights. Don't go for hydrogenated. Go for unrefined.
Okay, Mark, let me show you what I have got here. I'm now sharing my screen. Here is the list. It's all at drcate.com. We'll put the link in the show notes. But here, I want you to see, there it is, Primal Kitchen's avocado oil mayo that she just realized. But would you check this out? Here's a list of all the things that she recommends. This is one of the reasons we wanted to do this show, is this is insanely practical. You can just get healthier by following this list. I mean, cookies and dough, there's options for that. I mean, I'm in.
That's good news.
So
But
really practical, right? Because you can make this a template and this is the only stuff you buy or some of the stuff that you buy. So you can start your journey to being more healthy.
I mean, what an actionable recommendation here, Mike. You know, Dr. Cate's really laid out very specifically on that website all of those ingredients that she does recommend. So it becomes very, very easy for us. Obviously, something that we haven't really delved into today is something that we've covered on previous shows, which is pairing consumption of food with a bit of exercise and a bit of physical activity. That Dr. Cate certainly leans into that as well, and enhancing your ability to go for a walk, maybe do some light yoga or something like that after meals is a great way of stimulating and supporting that digestion. But to take that step backwards and really lean into what the topic of today is all about in terms of food that we're consuming, suddenly by being mindful, by having a proactive approach towards those shopping lists, towards being curious, I think, about what is in the oils and what is in the food preparation items that we're purchasing. Maybe we're purchasing just because we always have. Maybe it's things that we're buying because we bought them for years and we don't necessarily even need them.
Right.
It's getting a little bit curious, Mike, isn't it, about what you've got in your pantry, what you've got in your shopping basket, and then thinking, how is that going to help me be proactive, energetic, do my best work, maybe being present or relaxed with my family. You know, there are so many connections, I think, physically that we can connect back to what you consume each day, isn't there?
So it really starts with the decision and the mindset to be as healthy as you can be. And once you've done that, I think what I hope we've done in the show today is shown you there are there's 8 enemies of our health. No matter where you're at right now, whether you improve your genetic health or decrease it, the choice is yours because they're always regenerating. So that's yours. And if you can avoid the snacks, build the healthy habits, get that nutritious shopping list together, the path is there. So we don't have to be doom and gloom like there's no alternative. There is. Lots of people trying to live well. The question mark is, where are you going to start on your journey to improving your shopping list and your nutrition?
I think I'm going to definitely bear in mind the aspect of heat and those Hateful Eight oils. I think those are going to be something that I can very quickly look in the pantry, remove anything that I think contradicts what Dr. Cate's saying. But Mike, I think it's that final link. It's taking a look at Dr. Cate's recommended list of food and really starting to incorporate that into my weekly shopping so that I can get those benefits from a legacy as well as a current mindset perspective. But what about you, Mike? You know, I know that nutrition is very, very important to you and it contributes to good sleep and so on. What's going to be the takeaway that you've got from today's show?
Definitely what she called me out on is, even if they're healthy, I do love a good snack. I love like raw cashews, raisins and sultanas, like rice crackers, but what I realize is I'm interrupting that metabolic process of using stored fats versus new fats. So that's my homework. Homework assignment. Thanks, Dr. Cate. Well, Mark, I want to say thank you to you, and thank you to you, our listeners, viewers, and members too, here on show 269, where we went deep with Dr. Catherine Shanahan and her very, very powerful book called Deep Nutrition. We covered 4 pillars of going deep on your nutrition. 1, avoid the Hateful Eight. And if you need some extra, avoid the heat as well. The good news is that by avoiding those and adopting good foods, you can change your genes. You're always regenerating. And as you do that, you can train your body to be more metabolic flexible. So that means that you can use the right sort of energy stores when you need them. You can be lean, mean, and out there doing your best thing. And when you're out there doing your best thing, that means hitting the grocery store and buying the right stuff. So we even hit you with a shopping list so that you can put the right things into your body. Do those things. You'll not only feel good in your body, but your mind will be clearer. Your heart will be more relaxed and experience far less anger and frustration. But more than that, you'll be unlocking a whole chain reaction of good thinking, good living, and good being in your body. And if you do those things, by golly, I think you'll be the best version of yourself. And that is what we're all about here on the Moonshots podcast. That's a wrap.